Okay, so I decided I should do it for 10 minutes instead of like, I don't even know how long I did it last time. So, okay, still on page 3. Emily suppressed a sigh, wishing everyone would just leave her alone. It was plain bad luck that her 10th grade guidance counselor had called her parents, excited about Camp Excel, a new extensive 6-week experimental summer program for students who were not performing to their abilities. It certainly wouldn't hurt to send you, darling, Miss Wood had announced at the dinner table. Nothing else. Rewards, tutors, praise. Nothing we've tried has helped. She had tucked a loose strand of her light streaked hair behind her ears and smiled ensuringly at Emily. According to Miss Carmody, Dr. Kendrick Isaacson has developed an absolutely marvelous summer program to help underachievers learn to do their best. He's gaining fame among both psychiatrists and educators. I never heard of him, Emily had said. I bet you didn't either until Miss Carmody told you about him. Of course I have. His field is psychology. Patty Foswick, my friend in Dallas, has raved about him and urged me to take you there, too, for an evaluation. But I realized that Dallas would be too far away for you to do any extended work with him. But in Hill Country Resort they're using for the summer school, Emily's father had interrupted. Is he in private practice? No, Miss Wood had answered. He's one of the founders of the Foxworth Isaacson Educational Center in Dallas. Emily had dropped her fork with a clatter, her fingers suddenly unable to hold it. For an instant she was numb, unable to see or breathe or think. Emily, she'd heard her father ask from a long distance away. Emily, is there something the matter? Gripping the edge of the table, Emily had forced herself to take a deep breath, and she felt her mother's hand clamp onto her forehead. She'd opened her eyes. I'm okay, she'd said. For a moment She couldn't finish the thought. She had no idea why she'd suddenly felt a horrible fear rush through her body. It didn't make sense, so there was no way she was going to say anything to her parents about it. She repeated the words over again in her mind. The Foxworth Isaacson Educational Center. Had she heard the name before? She had no recollection of it, so why had it made her so afraid? Emily could find no explanation. She isn't running a fever, Miss Wood had said, and had taken her hand away. But did you see Robert? The color absolutely drained from her face. I knew she was going to faint. Is there some new virus going around Houston? Nothing out of the ordinary, he'd answered. Emily had been aware that her father was studying her, so she refused to look in his direction. She deliberately... Sorry about that. Let's just start right here. She deliberately picked up her solid fork and poked at the bits and pieces of pot roasted noodles on her plate, still puzzled by what had just happened. And Dr. Wood finally had asked, Vicky, have you ever visited the educational center? No, Emily's mother had answered. But as I told you, I've heard glowing things about it, even before now. Patty. You remember Patty. I went to school with her. Used to live in the same neighborhood as the center. It's situated on a gorgeous old estate in Dallas. Patty raved about the progress Dr. Isaacson and Dr. Foxworth were making in getting kids back on track. I remember when Emily and I visited Patty and her daughter Jamie for a weekend years ago. Jamie had been 9 or 10, about 2 years older than Emily, and panic grew like a tight knot, threatening to close Emily's throat. She'd wanted nothing to do with this educational center. She didn't know why. She'd only realized she'd have to... She had interrupted her mother. Nobody asked me if I wanted to go to this camp. Don't I have a choice? Emily's father had spoken firmly. What? I'm sorry. My mom decided to... Anyway. Emily's father had spoken firmly, probably the way he spoke to reluctant patients who balked at getting their shots. Emily guessed. "No," he said, "you don't." "But, Dad, I don't need Emily," he had countered. "You do need." "I can't." "You will. If your mother and your guidance counselor think it's for the best, then it's for the best. There will be no more discussion about it." Emily knew it would be futile to try and change her parents' mind, so she hadn't. The car swung around a curve, and Emily's memories were broken by her mother's sudden exclamation of surprise. "This doesn't look like any summer camp I've ever seen," Miss Wood said. "It's beautiful. The pictures in the brochure don't do it justice." "You told me the property once operated as a resort," Dr. Wood said. He mumbled under his breath. "It costs more than any resort," but Emily heard. She glanced at the low, gleaming two-story stucco buildings that formed a parenthesis around a wide expanse of neatly trimmed lawn. White gravel pathways bordered with orange and yellow splashes of summer marigolds connected the buildings. Through the open gap beyond the cozy circle lay the deep blue waters of a lake. The view was attractive, but Emily shuddered, and again she was puzzled by her fear. Dr. Wood parked in an empty slot near the main entrance of the building on the left. "You made sure your suitcases had yellow tags on them, didn't you, Emily?" "Yes, Dad," she had answered. Why did he have to ask? "Okay," he said. Instructions were to stick all luggage behind the car where it would be picked up and delivered to the rooms. He climbed out of the car, carefully shutting the door behind him. Before she left the car, Miss Wood reached back and gripped Emily's arm. "Darling,